The Autumn Nation Series is well underway, and it's almost time for what could be the biggest game of the year, France versus South Africa.
I feel like the Boks have such a psychological advantage over France at the moment until France beat them.
Can Scotland make history and beat the All Blacks?
They don't do it this weekend. I'm not sure they do, lads. Ever. And we make Coley relive England's infamous loss against Fiji in 2023.
As a squad, it was like, if we carry on the way we're going to go, we're going to get embarrassed again at this World Cup. Yeah, thanks, lads. I'm Dan Cole, Ben Young's Anthony Watson are here, and this is your Autumn Nation Series weekend preview.
Autumn Nation Series round 2, lads. I am so excited. Of course, Scotland are playing at New Zealand, England are playing Fiji, and then it is the winners of the Six Nations versus the winner of the Rugby Championship, France versus South Africa. So I've got a question for you guys. Is this the biggest game of the season?
Len, it is a massive game. There's no disputing that. I think the style of play, I think, with both teams, I think makes this out to be a potential all-court game. I think that South Africa have got the ability to play loads of different styles. But I think, especially if Sasha Feinberg is at 10, or Manny Lebok is at 10, I think that they try and play a slightly more expansive game. And I think that if France come and play their traditional French game and South Africa play that more expansive style, I think we've got a hell of a game on our hands. I'm praying that it's dry, so we don't see 45 scrums and pick and goes all game. Coley's not happy about that. But yeah, mate, I definitely think, thinking about it more, I think this probably is the game of the series for everyone. I think you could talk about England, New Zealand being a huge game, but I think that this is a serious battle. And there's a lot of bragging rights on offer.
France, South Africa is huge. England, New Zealand's huge. I think Scotland, New Zealand is big this weekend also. And finally, Ireland play South Africa in the last round. So, Coley, there'll be a lot of people saying that the All Blacks versus the Boks is bigger, but they get to play each other multiple times a year and we see it so often. But when you actually look at this fixture and the history, they don't play each other very often at all.
No. Well, so they played each other last at the Rugby World Cup in 2023. They played the year before that, and then before that was like back in 2018. So these two teams, it seems, very rarely actually come up against each other, which is just adds to the intrigue of this matchup. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be like Saturday night, 9 o'clock kickoff in Paris, like under the lights, full attention. I'm sure the place will be absolutely buzzing. The world champions in town, especially after what happened in the World Cup, where I think already France have sort of come out and sort of said that, it was their World Cup to win and South Africa stopped them doing it and all how it happened. So, I'm really looking forward to it. Like the revenge game, that element. I mean, we had a revenge game last week, didn't we, with Ireland, New Zealand, that went crap. So, this one hopefully will be a lot better. But yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. It'll be interesting to see, like, what France, because France, I think, are missing a few bodies. That's the bit I'm concerned about. Especially, I'm going to go straight there, Tone. Udi Antonio, or Weenie Antonio up front as their tight head. He's a talismanic figure. But when you go to the play, take on the box, you've got to take him on at scrum. And the depth, Aldeguerres to lose a tight head, I think will go all right. But I think the depth behind that is maybe not there for the French. So I think, I'm looking forward to the scrum battle. I'm looking forward to two ginormous packs going at each other and just adding to the spectacle.
Well, Malfaka's also injured. Mofana is, and Maxime Luku seems to be a bit of a doubt as well. But I feel like France need to win this game more than South Africa does, psychologically. Given what happened in 23, given like mulling over and everything like that, I feel like the Boks have such a psychological advantage over France at the moment until France beat them. Until France find a way of beating the Boks, I feel like there's scars there. Like it psychologically, France need this more than the Springboks need it.
Yeah, I feel like South Africa have got that aura about them at the moment where, irrelevant of who they play against, they go into most games as favourites. And so I completely agree with what you're saying, Len. I think that France will probably go into this slightly as underdogs, especially given, some of the players you mentioned not being fit. And I think they'll have a point to prove. But I don't know. I just think South Africa, like Coley touched on there, the depth the different styles of play that they've got. Not just depth in the front row with, the bomb squad, but across the back line. Like, they can play so many different styles with different players that fit the styles. I don't know. I just think that they're on a different level still at the moment. I know that their Rugby Championship was by no means perfect, but I still think that they're too good.
The amount of players they rotated and used, the Boks did during the Rugby Championship, I almost wonder, are we going to see the strongest team that Razzie thinks this weekend against France? Does he go fully loaded? What I also love about Razzie is the mind game's already started. So he's following one account on Twitter or X, and that is the French team. Like, classic mind games already from him. Love it. But I do wonder whether he shows what he deems as the strongest team against France.
The previous time in the World Cup, France were winning, weren't they? And they basically got ahead, and I think they choked a bit in regards to kicking the ball out on the full from like a 22 drop out. They basically gave South Africa picked up 2 drop balls and ended up scoring. So it'll be really interesting to see if South Africa go ahead, do France then sort of panic and throw the ball around and just try and go for it, which then plays in South Africa's hands, or whether it's going to be a real tight test match and you know what I mean? Edgy.
There's no let-off against the Boks, as you mentioned there. And the Boks are obviously coming into it, having played the Rugby Championship, got cohesion. They played against Japan at the weekend, albeit some changes again, and a much bigger challenge this weekend. But France go in it with no games under their belt. Like, they picked a B team, essentially, that toured New Zealand. We haven't really seen the strongest French team since the Six Nations, which was 7 months ago. And we all know that France traditionally, certainly during the Six Nations or even the Autumn Nations Cup over the years, don't particularly start well. So it's almost, it feels like the biggest game France have had for a long time, yet they're going into it not best prepared. So I think psychologically, they probably know that. And I just think it's the Springboks could get that edge over them, because I don't know, they may not meet again now until maybe the next World Cup. And if the Springboks do them again, like, psychologically, that's a big hurdle. I remember in 2018, we went to tour South Africa. Razzie had just come in and we lost in Joburg, then we lost in Bloemfontein, and then we played in Cape Town for the final game in horrible conditions, and they'd rotated their team loads and we won. But I felt like on the back of that tour, they just had this psychological edge over us, certainly within the forward pack and the way that they defended and were able to contain our attack and things. There was something about it, and I almost wonder, is this another example of that with France?
You look at who started the season on red hot form, and BL Barry has picked up where he left off last season, scoring tries for fun. And that matchup, BL Barry and hopefully Penno against, again, the likely candidates in Curtly Aronson and Cheslin Colby, in my opinion, is the ultimate wingers matchup. Like, those are 4 of the top 5 wingers in the world on one pitch. And that's another reason why I'm praying it's dry, because we want to see those guys ball in hand. We want to see them with a bit of space. I mean, look, BL Barry versus Colby is literally like dynamite. You know, give either of them an inch of space and they're gone. So there's definitely, like we said, there's going to be fireworks. The game is not going to be dull by any stretch of the imagination, I don't think. And that's a particular area of the game that I'm looking forward to a lot. 4
of the top 5 wingers, in your opinion, and that is a great statement from you. So who is the 5th?
I shouldn't have said that. Do you know what? I think Tommy Freeman. On the wing, yeah, definitely. I think, his Lions tour probably wasn't as explosive as he'd have liked, as in making huge game determining plays like he does for Saints in England, but he was solid and he still made his mark on the game. And I think, in the few games he's played for Northampton already this year, you've seen how good he is. To score the tries he scored in the Six Nations last year as well, I think he's definitely in the top 5.
That's really insightful. And back to BL Barry versus Colby and Aronson versus Penno. What makes those 4 wingers so good? What is it?
You know what? I think that all 4 of them are different, entirely different players. Like BL Barry has got a ridiculous, I guess, way of finding his way to the try line. Like he looks like he's cornered and he's not, and he'll find a way where you just don't imagine there's any space for him to go into. He's also great with his feet, which I think makes a massive difference, and he backs his speed. So I think that's probably what separates him from everyone else. I think you talk about speed and wingers, and there's fast wingers, and then there's an elite level of speed. And I think that BL Barry is in that level of elite speed. I'd probably go on a whim and say that he's the fastest of the four. I think he is. And then Colby, mate, we don't have to talk too much about him. We know how good he is. We've seen it time and time again. He's a complete player in terms of, as we said, he's played at 10 for Toulouse, makes things happen whenever he touches the ball, good in the air, just all round. I don't think there's a weakness to his game. I'd put, if any two are most similar, I would put Aronson and BL Barry in a similar-ish territory. I'd say Aarons has probably got a little bit more lateral movement than BL Barry does, so he can make defenders miss a little bit more. But again, brilliant in the air, can't give him no space. And Penno's the outlier in terms of completely different to the other three, both in his size and the way he plays the game. Obviously, like I said, he's got to be 6'2", 6'3", got to be at least 100 kilos. So he's someone that doesn't need to make as much space away from the defenders, the other three, because when you're that big, and you've got that much mass and speed, all you have to do is get to an arm or a soft shoulder, and you're going to break through the contact. And that's what's happened so much with Penno. People look like they're in the right spot, but he's able to shake through tackles and make line breaks. So yeah, that's how I would sort of break them all down.
Absolutely. Like, they're so elusive. Makes total sense. And, and psychologically, like when you play with players like that, and, when I think of yourself and I think of Johnny May for England at our time, you've got game breakers. So whenever the game is tight or on a knife edge, you felt like you had the players that could make something happen. Like in that moment, in that minute of need for the team, like we had players that could absolutely break it and win it for you. And you look at all those four that you just listed there, and five actually, but the four that are going head to head this weekend, they can all change the game in a second. Like break a tackle, like offset a defender, make a clean break, put someone away, like score out of nothing, run down a kick. Like they just have it all. I think that matchup alone is going to be worth the watch, to be honest with you.
Ultimately as well, guys, 3 out of the 4 of those wear scrum caps, which is really interesting, probably aerodynamic reasons. But talking about scrums, I like the way you've linked that in there. Ox Unche is out, who's obviously probably one of the best scrummaging looseheads in the world, if not the premier scrummaging loosehead in the world. And Francis Antonio, who's a ginormous tight head, who anchors the French scrum and has done for sort of the past several years now. So I'm looking forward to that battle up front. I think scrum-wise, I think South Africa's going to have more. I think the French, you actually look at their depth, they're not, I think, to start with, they might be able to get by, but I think as the game wears on, you look at the Springboks when they bring on the bomb squad, like in previous games, they've brought on like the impact of like a Vilko Low who comes on at tight head, and they've just munched, like New Zealand, I think they basically pushed them off their own ball, didn't they, in one of the tests, and it almost gets them such momentum. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that sort of moment around 50, 60 minutes where this box unleash their bench and away we go. To
be honest with you, we could spend the whole show talking about the game between France and South Africa, but there's so many other things we need to cover off. But I cannot wait to watch it, nor can you. And I also can't wait to review it, lads, and see what actually went down at the weekend.
Tone, how are you? It's been a week since I saw you last. It was at your testimonial dinner, which I had a great time at. How are you? How was it? Stressful? Good time?
It was stressful, which I caveated it with drinking a significant amount of alcohol, probably close to as much, but not as much as our colleague over here, Mr. Youngs, who was in a world of pain on Wednesday. But no, Coley, it was an unbelievable evening. I'll be honest. I was bricking it before, but the lads showed up in force. You guys included, massively appreciated. It was a very, very pleasant evening. The day after was not so pleasant, but again, I think Lenny's probably got more to say about the day after than I do.
Tone, what can I say, mate? I was all in for yours and JJ's testimonial. Like, I got a bit carried away. I was catching up with friends, like catching up with old colleagues, and I got a bit excited. And I woke up the next day in an absolute hole. I woke up at like 9:45, and then I was like, oh my God, I feel awful. And I thought, I'll have a shower, like pack my bag, get myself out of there. Myself and Coley actually had an event that evening as well, that Wednesday evening at 7:00. And I thought, right, I'm going to sort of like go source a coffee and try and kill the day a bit. So I went for a shower, then like started packing my bag and thought I need another lie down. Fell back to sleep, got woken up at midday to someone knocking at my door because obviously it was time to check out. So then I sort of like give me a minute, get changed, leave the room. I'm like, oh my gosh, like head pounding, feeling awful. Head for a nearest coffee shop, get some caffeine down me. I think that's not really done anything. I was like, I've still got like 6 hours till the event starts that evening. I then go walk into a barber shop and ask if it's walk-ins. They said no, but they've got a little 20-minute window. So I sit down. Obviously, bear in mind, I've got all my like, luggage with me as well. I look like Kim Jong-un, mate, because like I've got a round face as it is, but when it's the morning after a big night out, like I'm really puffy. So I've got this like mop. I'm puffy. I can hardly see. I must reek of alcohol. Like he shapes me up as best he can. I sort of stutter out of there. I think I know what I need. Carbs. I go to an Italian. I order carbonara. I have about 3 mouthfuls and think I can't go on. I can't. So then I have this genius idea of I either like sit in a cafe all day and wait for this appearance with Coley, or I go and check in at another hotel near the appearance and go to bed for like 3-4 hours. And I opted for that. So I went there. I was like, have you got any rooms available? They're like, yes. Check-in's not till 3. I was like, do you do early check-in? They're like, yeah, but it's an extra charge. I was like, take my money. Just get me to bed. And I went to bed. And I woke up about 3.5 hours later and I felt slightly more normal. But mate, that is all my own doing, but credit to a fantastic evening at your testimonial, mate. It was absolutely awesome. How good to celebrate yours and JJ's career. So many good people there. Like the room was stacked full of players, and mate, it was awesome honour to be there and celebrate it. My other highlight as well, of course, apart from nursing a humongous hangover, of course, was Taro Mings, who was there, Aston Villa player and good friend of yours. Him bidding on a ballet and like hotel retreat ballet and everything like that. And like I couldn't have been the only one in the room thinking there's no way Tyrone's gonna go to that, but what a generous man in bidding for it anyway. And winning it.
Mate, do you know what? He's a cultured man, but I think he might look slightly out of place backstage at the ballet, let's be honest. 6'5", bloke with dreads backstage at the ballet. Not sure it's the right fit, but anyway, yeah, it was massively appreciated. You're right.
Coley was on my table with me, and he was getting stuck in, but he managed to escape and get himself home. Where I was left to the demise of Simon and my brother.
I feel a bit bad because the people on our table, I basically spent most of the night outside. It was like myself, your brother, Joe Marler's there, Chris Robshaw's there, just catching up like the good old days. Just basically. Talking nonsense for those guys. I had to go back in and say, right, I'm off, goodbye. And as I'm going off, the first prize in the auction's being bidded off. And basically, the auctioneer's abusing the blokes at the table, saying, you got to bid, you got to be more, you got to do more. I'm like, I've got to go now, guys. Sorry. I'm like, it's the most awkward moment because all the functions, everything's just on your table. I'm like, right, I've got to go because my train's leaving. I've put it back, got to go. Anyway, I got outside. I thought, tried to get an Uber, couldn't. Then I decided to get a black cab, so I got a black cab straight away. The guy's going about 3 miles an hour. I'm like, mate, can we get there? My train leaves at 11 o'clock. I've got to go. Like, can we get there? He's like, yeah, no problem. Anyway, got around there. There's all these roadworks outside King's Cross. So I was literally like half a mile. I think it was like 3/4 of a mile to go. I'm like, I've got like 8 minutes. We're not going to get there. So I'm like, right, just drop me here. I'm going to run.
Oh my day, so in a suit.
I did the final 3/4 mile in a suit, in a coat. Did it. Oh my God. I sat on the train and I was like, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I sat there, like, I'm breathing heavy. I've started sweating through my shoulders, through my like shirt. I'm not obviously getting the layers off because I'm like, I need to cool down, but I'm just sat there. And like the woman's come round, it's like, oh, tickets, please. I'm just like, oh.
Well, do you know what? That bodes well. Because Coley, you've still trained, and I think you're actually looking in great shape at the moment. And you did that run, and that's how you felt. Well, think of me, because at the weekend I'm playing in the 745 game at Kingsholm for Rubb Borough, Ed Slate, and of course Doddy Weir for the MMD Foundation. and I'm running around in that. So if you felt like that after a 8-minute run at King's Cross, I have no idea how I'm going to feel on Sunday, lads.
I've seen some of the leagueies playing. There's a chance you're going to have your head taken off, mate. First team name on the list, Adrian Morley. If all the listeners want to go, like, just Google or YouTube Adrian Morley's highlights, it's like he got a red card after 3 seconds against Australia.
Yeah. Add Keith Senior to the mix, and that forearm guard he wears is going to be wrapped around Lenny's head. It's going to be a very interesting evening for you, my friend.
It's one of those things. Like, I got asked, I've got to help, I've got to play, I've got to do my thing. But I am slightly aware, right? The difference between playing let's say, a charity football game is very different to playing a charity rugby game, especially when you're playing in rugby league format. There is every chance that I'm getting my head taken off and getting hurt. There is one part of me that goes, do you know what, it'll be okay? Because I've got this feeling, however much I'm suffering out there, I've always got Joe Marler right next to me. And he can't even remember which foot he injured because he hasn't moved for that long. So, worst case scenario, I'll take it right to the line and I'm just going to dump it off to Marler, and then hopefully Adrian Morley can take Marler's head off.
Take it right to the line. What are you playing? Are you playing at 10?
I don't know where I'm playing, mate. Is there even positions in rugby league? Tell me you've got to stay on one side of the field. I don't even know how it works, mate. I'm playing fullback. This is what I mean. And I know you're going to have zero intention of learning anything in time for this game. So you need to figure out what position you're playing, Len, first and foremost, and then we can work from that backwards. But I'm slightly concerned. I'm even more concerned now than I was at the start of this about your longevity.
Tone, I think Len's going to be fine. I think he's absolutely fine. As long as the leagueies never find out that he spent like half his career slagging them off in the change room, saying how soft they were, saying they can't tackle, saying like, why they always go high? How they can't defend? Just all you have to do is run at them and you go through. Like, as long as they never find that out.
Oh, appreciate that, lads. Thanks for that. Also, my team will be my brother's playing, so that's always handy. Marler, which is going to be hilarious. Mike Tyndall, of course, is playing. Richard Hibbard, Billy Twelvetrees, and many, many more. So it will be a great turnout. But just to make matters worse, if you're me, but it's great that it's actually on telly. So, which means my kids can watch and just see how bad I've got in the last 6 months.
Not only your kids, the entire rugby population is going to see it, Len.
It's not about me, lads. It's about the day and the occasion. But I am, safe to say I'm slightly wary because you can't go half-arsed in rugby. If I jog in, someone's going to absolutely muller me. But if I charge in, someone's going to muller me as well. And if someone jogs at me, they'll sit me on my ass, let them know if they run hard. So either way, lads, I'm absolutely doomed. But I might whip out a drop goal because I've always wanted to hit one. So this could be the time.
I did enjoy chatting to your brother at Tone's Testimonial, basically. And your brother was like, I'm playing the game, yeah. There's always some dickhead that basically sparks it. I'm like, yeah, it's you. I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, just take it steady. Yeah. No, I've heard it's you, Young. You're going to be the first. I'm going to watch TV, and the first chop tackle, the first light carry is going to be him. He's either going to be carrying it back, or he's going to be like heading the spokes on some poor rugby league player who's carrying it back, isn't it? So your brother's going to spark it. And if the fight starts, you're going to have to jump in, Len. So
with my current shape, lads, I might be suited more to up the middle anyway these days than a ball player. So maybe it's Marler first carry, my brother second, then it's me. And then we all three of us then immediately substituted due to chronic fatigue.
The game will be broadcast live on TNT Sports, or you can grab yourself a ticket. There's a few more available. So, if you're listening and you fancy a good Sunday night of supporting a great cause, please do that.
Tell you what else I've been doing in my free time is watching Champions Full Gallop. It's a documentary covering jumping, horse racing. You get behind the scenes, all the access. And actually this episode is brought to you by Champions Full Gallop. Starts in Paul Nicholls' yard, seeing like his relationship with Harry Cobden and then Harry Cobden's mentality, because I tell you what they brought in is the David Power Jockey's Cup. And essentially what that is, it's a bit like F1, right? So if a jockey comes first, you get 10 points, second, you get 8, third, you get 6th, and it's accumulation of points. And come April, you have the champion. The winner wins 500k. So they've just brought that in, and that is mega. So the consequences are even bigger anyway. But you get to see his mentality around it, competing for that life-changing amount of money. Tone, can you imagine being a winger and the top try scorer at the end of the season got like, maybe it was assist and try scorer combined, and you won 500k?
Mate, I'd be coming out of retirement immediately.
Has it inspired you to become a jockey, Ben?
I'd have to lose about 40 kilos. They are lean and tiny. There's also a little scene actually where they're doing the weighing room, and obviously you have to come in and weigh and everything like that as well. So no, like they are brave and crazy. But yeah, my gosh, mate, it's very insightful and really enjoyable. Like you really get to see sort of behind the scenes and the mentality behind it.
With jockeys, you always get the impression it's quite glamorous with horses and the money and stuff. But actually, I think from what I've heard, it's actually quite a hard life on the road. I say, obviously, the danger of the sport and just say competing, but you're also competing a lot, aren't you? And you're around the country all the time. So yeah, I'll have to give it a watch.
So if, like me, you like your horses, Champions Full Gallop Season 2 is now airing on ITV1 every Friday at 10:45. And it's also available to watch on ITVX.
Now, I'm going to be completely honest with both of you. I know I've been away for a while, but you guys did the draft without me. And bear in mind, I was the first winner of the draft. To not be invited back so soon after, it is borderline disrespectful. So what have you got to say about that? Because it's not right.
Well, what we can say about that, Ant, is we knew that you were so committed to making your testimonial such a great, fantastic evening that we felt that if you came to the studio and did the draft, that it would only distract you. But the great news is there is going to be a draft in 2026, and we're heading to Birmingham, and you are going to join us on stage live, Ant. So don't worry, mate. You're going to defend your title. Instead of being in the studio, you can defend it in front of a live audience.
Can we just say, like you say, defend your title? We've had a
hang on, he didn't even win.
Whoa. We can forget about
the first draft we ever did. You might have won, but then
might
after
have
that, mate. Like you can't. I can't remember. It was so long
Tone,
ago.
the last draft we did live at Clapham Grand, you picked Christian Wade on the wing, and the next day he signed for Rugby League. So
that was for the British and Irish Lions. You picked Christian Wade, who then went to Rugby League. Yeah.
Right, that was not my finest moment, but I still stand by that team that I selected. And the one before that was unanimously victorious. So anyway, enough of the beef. I'm going to back it up again next time and we'll see who wins. I guess that brings me on to reveal to you the winners or losers of the 2025 Autumn Nations Series draft. And in fourth place, it brings me great pleasure to announce that fourth place is Mr. Dan Cole.
What?
It's extremely unfortunate.
Justice.
In third place, tied third place, we have Max Brown and Mr. Ben Youngs, which means that the winner is the one and only Squidge Rugby with a resounding 32% of the vote, which makes me think you two were useless and you really need me back.
We don't need to worry about that, Ben.
We don't need to. I mean, I'll say quickly, congratulations to Robbie, part of Squidge Rugby. And I still maintain I had a better team. And no one wanted to go to Greenland. Like, no one fancied that away game.
Before we move on, lads, I think Robbie has sent me his 15-minute acceptance speech. So we'll have a listen to that now.
Doesn't happen very often, but Jack Morgan was just on a winning team. I am over the moon. Thank you to everyone that voted for me. Thank you to everyone that just didn't vote for one of the others as well, to allow those votes to accrue. Very happy to have won the draft. I was really happy with the team I put together. And, you know, I was in the Lions draft as well, so I'm glad justice has been done for that. But I am over the moon. Thank you to everyone that had me and involved me in this as well. And I'm pretty happy with the team. Thank you to everyone for agreeing that Paolo Garbisi is the best fly half in the world. And I am very much looking forward to picking up my trophy at some point in the future and displaying it, pride of place, on my head at pretty much all. I'm just going to wear it out and about on my head as a hat for at least 3 to 6 months.
Seeing how happy he is makes me happy. And the fact he's going to wear it like a party hat for 6 months, it's all yours, Robbie. You can have the trophy, mate. I'm going to win it back on the 9th of April in Birmingham.
And I like his tactics, because basically what he did was he basically united the nation of Wales, didn't he, behind his team by picking Jack Morgan, by naming it after Wales, all that kind of stuff. So basically he went for the popular vote rather than the rugby vote. So yeah, no, I see what he did there.
Well, we've got plenty of other live shows. So on the 13th of February, we're going to be in Edinburgh the night before the Calcutta Cup. On the 19th of February, we are at Shepherd's Bush Empire in London. On the 9th of April, we're in Birmingham for the live draft night. Ant will be joining us. On the 19th of April, we're in Cheltenham. The 25th of April, we're in Dublin. 26th of April, we're in Manchester. 28th of April, we're in Exeter. And finally, on the 29th of April, we will be in Cardiff.
Yeah, and if you'd like tickets to those, the link to buy them is in the description and use the code THB.
We sold out the tour last time and they go on general sale on Friday. So use the code. We don't want you to miss out. And we look forward to seeing you at our live shows.
Now, lads, of course, England are playing Fiji on Saturday. And outside of the World Cup, the last time we played Fiji at Allianz Twickenham, it was a surprising loss. And only one of us, was on the field that day. So, Coley, do you want to talk to us about your memories of that day, or should we skip over that?
Hi, guys. Yeah, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. I'm happy not. What can I say? It was a great day for Fijian rugby and world rugby in general, wasn't it? I was gladly grateful to be part of that. Really put Fiji further on the map. No, it was a historic day for them. I take the mic. I say it was a historic day for Fiji. And it probably was a bit of a turning point in England and our prep for the Rugby World Cup in 2023. So I say it was probably, all this, it was I want to say a dark day for English rugby. Like, ultimately, I think England should never lose to Fiji, but we did. But I think that on the back of that, I think it was a turning point for England, especially as that was our final game before the World Cup, before we went to start our prep in the 2K. So, yeah.
It was a strange old feeling after, wasn't it, Coley? Because, Ant, you'd left a week before, hadn't you? You'd got injured, so it meant your World Cup was over, unfortunately. So you were watching from afar. I was in the stands with the lads who weren't involved, and we'd been a bit stuttery. And there was only 57,000 people there that day, and Twickenham is normally rocking, especially before you go off to a World Cup. And it was a strange old feeling, losing. But as Coley said, in a weird way, now we look back, it actually focused the mind and sharpened us up for when we got to the World Cup. It
was a strange day because if you remember, it was Courtney Lawes' 100th cap. He sort of came out. It was pre-World Cup, and I think the World Cup squad had been announced, but it was kind of, there were some guys in that team who weren't going, if I remember correctly, to the World Cup, and some were, and it was a real weird game because it wasn't like we were hitting full straps. I think we'd, lost the week before to Ireland, didn't we? Like, we had a couple of dodgy games against Wales where we beat them once and lost once, and it was a real strange period. It was almost like the World Cup's got to have been announced, but it wasn't fully set in stone. And I remember that game, and it was a strange vibe, like I say. Twickenham was, I don't know, sort of expected us just to win. And I think one thing is we scored early doors in the game. I remember I think Johnny May scored after about sort of, it might have been 7 or 8 minutes. And we were almost like, we'll score now. We'll win the game because every time we touch the ball, we'll win. But then Fiji, I think it was quite tight, 30 minutes in. I think Fiji basically, if I remember, I think Genji counter-rucked a breakdown, and the tight head on the day didn't fold around the corner quick enough. And then they went inside the big gap that had been created and basically went through and scored. And then, like, the winger at the time, 14, he was unstoppable that day. I will not try and pronounce the name, but he plays at Racing, and I say he went around Johnny May and offloaded inside and they scored. And it was just one of those things where it's like, we weren't out of control, but it's like we're in control of the game here. But then, like, Fiji scored, I think, 2 or 3, like, incredibly skillful tries, moving the ball to the width, and it was kind of like, we'll get back in the game. And we got back and it was about 23. And then again, they scored again. I think the winger ran over Marler at one point, and just, they were too far ahead. And it's, it was a strange day because, as I say, we were very, I wouldn't say discombobulated, but we were very, as you say, blocky. And we never got really flown to the game. And it was kind of like, we'll beat Fiji. Just do this. And, our set piece and our maul. And actually, it didn't come to the party, and Fiji punished us, and credit to them, they won. And, afterwards, it was sort of, again, as I said before, it kind of galvanised the squad because we then realised that was probably the low point, and we actually had to buy into everything we were going to be coached and done, and we did, and it moved us on. Yeah,
Coley, I remember watching this game, and I think that there's 2 moments that I look back on and I think were pivotal for Steve and where the England team are now. And I think one was that England-France game in the Six Nations where we got absolutely hosed. And then I would say this is the other pivotal game where things had to change and had to move on because, I think at that point, like Lenny said, that the stadium wasn't full, which is very rare going into a World Cup. And there was also frustrations around playing style and are the right people being selected, this, that, and the other. And so I think that following that, there was a real turning point in terms of, I don't know whether it was like, it looked from the outside like the group again became very together and like insular and were less focused about what was going on externally. And that's just what it looked like to me. I'm not sure if it felt like that as a player, but it's definitely how it looked.
What we'll say is, I think if we'd have squeaked through, it'd have probably been, if we'd beaten Fiji, it would have probably been like a lot of the group as a whole would have been like, we'll be all right, you know what I mean? And taking that attitude into it and just we'll squeak out a result. Whereas I just think losing kind of drew a line under, basically, as players, we had to go fully in and submerge ourselves into the way that Steve wanted the team to play. Because actually, when we did the things that we were being coached, and it's tough because, again, I mean, I'm all right with set piece rugby and kicking the ball and that kind of, and tournament winning rugby, but there's a lot of people aren't. I think the public at the time, it's like, oh, play more rugby and that kind of stuff. But that almost like didn't suit that group in the way England set up and the short turnaround of the coach and all that kind of stuff. And attacks are, the hardest thing to layer on. But I actually think losing to Fiji meant that we had to double down on, and I think the players realised that actually if we're going to do anything in this World Cup, we have to fully immerse ourselves in what we're being coached, what we're going to do, and go out and do it rather than sort of being like half-assed with it. And I think that's more the playing group. I think wasn't as much the coaching side of things. It wasn't the bigger picture, but I think it was actually the playing group as senior players and as a squad. It was like, fuck, if we carry on the way we're going to go, we're going to get embarrassed again at this World Cup. Whereas actually now, after losing to Fiji, it's like, we need to, you know what I mean? Like, there's a plan. We buy into the plan. If it goes wrong, it's the plan's fault. But at the minute, we're not fully buying into it. So yeah, I think that it was a massive turning point for that World Cup.
I remember like coming down from the stands with the lads who obviously weren't playing, and you're almost like heading towards back down to change rooms, thinking like you're not quite sure what you're going to walk into. Like you do, because everyone's going to be disappointed, but you're like, to what extent? And as Coley mentioned there, it really did sort of draw a line in the sand by saying it in the most disrespectful way, but it will come across disrespectful, is it couldn't get any worse at that point. Like, I think we'd lost 5 of the last 6. We'd just lost at home against Fiji. It wasn't even a full stadium to see us off. There was a lot of chat going on. There was a lot of things going off. Faz, of course, he'd been banned and he was getting so much shit in the media, totally uncalled for. So our captain was getting stick. Like, players were getting, everything. And it was almost, at that point, as Coley mentioned, it was like, in a weird way, it really galvanised us and like brought us in closer. And it put us in a better spot by the time the tournament started, put it that way. And actually, the boys end up then playing Fiji, of course, in the quarterfinal and beating them. Poor old Marcus Smith had a tough day that day. Oh my God, they physically beat him up that day. Oh my gosh. But you expect that against Fiji, the physical stuff. But like I say, it's weird. It was almost like the lowest point. You hit sort of rock bottom almost, but actually, since then, England have been nicely building to what is now, 8 wins in a row. And I'm not saying that was, but if that's the lowest point, well, since then, it's been a nice upward trend, hasn't it?
Oh, that's just got me. I've got flashbacks of that game and Marcus. These Fijians, mate, I don't know what they're eating back home, but they're built from something different, honestly. I remember running into Rocco in training and thinking, this guy, it's not flesh and bone here. There's something else going on, because just built differently. And I remember going to Fiji after the 2017 Lions tour, and it was me and Carl Sinclair. And we decided to play touch on these dunes, and there was kids appearing from everywhere. And touch quickly escalated to semi-contact. And mate, these kids were flying in. And I'm sure a 9-year-old absolutely drilled me at one point. Like, they are just fearless and so strong, mate. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be 15 this week again. I'll tell you that.
I think that's what the big thing for me is when you play against Fiji, Samoa and Tonga is, yes, you got to be structurally disciplined in the way that you play, but more than anything, you've got to be physical first and foremost. And I think that's the big thing for England. And this is the bit I'm intrigued about. So if you look at England's squad at the moment, or the team that they're picking, if you look at the actual size of the team, it's not the biggest team. It's a team picked to run around, to move, to cover the ground quickly. It's not necessarily a squad to go front door over the top of you. and I think this is almost the perfect challenge for this England team right now, is an organised Fijian team coming on the back of the Pacific Nations Cup, being very, very physical, and what can England do in terms of winning the gain line, both with the ball and without the ball. And I almost feel this is a perfect test for England right now. And I'm really intrigued to see how that goes. You've got a team that covers the ground very, very quickly, a team not necessarily built to go over the top of teams. So what that looks like this weekend for me is I think we'll find out a lot more about this England team in a really good way.
Yeah, and talking about physicality, I was listening to the pod from last week and your take on Tommy Freeman at centre, and I actually disagree. I think, first and foremost, he was a lion on the wing. I think it would be remiss of us to suggest that 13 or anywhere else is his best position right now, other than wing. I still think he's England's best winger. I'm not sure that can be disputed right now. I think going forward, I would actually put him at fullback. I think fullback is probably a position where I can see him excelling. I think like we've seen, I think it's almost a blend of, especially when you're going forward, it's a blend of being at 13 and being on the wing. He can roam on both sides of the field like a centre. But I think him just being one remove from the wing means he's going to get a few more touches. And I think he's still got the ability to hit those lines that he does at centre so well at fullback. And then I think that, people will put question marks over his counter-attacking ability potentially, or his aerial game, or his kicking game, all of which are top tier. And we've seen that for Northampton. So I was not surprised, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see him play at fullback for England in the near future. And I think that, in my opinion, that's where I would love to see him play. I think that he's got all the skills to be a really world-class fullback, as well as an already world-class wing. And I think that with the stock that they've got at 13 in England already, with Ollie Lawrence, with Slady, I feel like probably best, letting those guys have a run, maybe, especially Ollie, a good solid run at 13, whilst, we give Fremo the ability to express himself closer to the ball or closer to the ruck, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like the Rieko Ioane situation, wasn't it? Of course, started out on the wing, moved to 13, actually played on the wing again for the All Blacks recently. And it's almost with Freeman, and Coley's a big fan of Fremo, I know, as are you and as am I think he's England's best back. And therefore he's England's best back. It's almost like we're trying to move him around to let him do his thing. And it's like, so do we put him at 13? Do you put him on the wing? He is an out-and-out winger. Like, he's class, world class. You just said it for yourself, Anne, earlier in the show, like he's your top 5 wingers. But we're still trying to move him about. Now, is that England trying to create depth in all positions because we know that at any point you can move him back out there and he'll do an amazing job? Is it a compliment to the depth of wingers we have, that we have such good wingers that none of them can actually move off the wing? It's just that he's that good a player that you can move him around. I agree with you. You got Ollie Lawrence, you got Henry Slade, you got Fraser Dingwall, you got Seb Atkinson. And I just think my point of the week was almost like, if you've done the experiment, do you just stick with it for this autumn just to see, and that sort of Rieko Ioane situation? Or, as you mentioned, is he long-term fullback? Now, England have flirted at fullback, haven't they, with Marcus Smith, with George Furbank, bless him, he can't get fit at the moment, and of course Freddie Stewart. So maybe it is fullback, but either way, he's our best back, yet he's the one that can have to move around. It's almost like you're not punished, that's not the right word, but you're the one that's got to be adaptable. But that's a compliment to his athletic ability and his physical attributes. It's
definitely a compliment, but it's also, it becomes tricky, and I don't think that people appreciate how it can almost negatively impact a player when they're moved around a lot, which is why maybe my suggestion on fullback, especially after playing 13 last week, isn't the best. Because you look at someone like, let's take Daly, who was the most well-rounded player that we played with, well, definitely in my opinion. And he flirted with centre, wing, fullback throughout his whole career. And it became very difficult to know which one his best position was, and therefore make himself the first name on the team sheet as a result. So I think that we've got to be careful about that I guess, imposing that on Fremo. But when you're that good, you're right, Len. When you're that good, you've got to be on the park, but then you've also got brilliant wingers that you want to be on the pitch as well. So yeah, you can't be the best player or the best back and then be squeezed in. It's a proper conundrum. It's a good conundrum to have, but the last thing you want is the player to be the one that loses out. Do you know what I mean? And their form to drop as a result.
It's a real headache. Coley, I'd love to know your opinion. Say you take Asher Poker for Jewel, for instance, can play loose and tight head. And I'm guessing that's a similar example as me and Ant discussed Tommy Freeman about where you put him. And whilst you've still got Henry Slade, you've still got Ollie Lawrence, you've still got Fraser Dingwall, the back three, Manny can't play 13, Freddie Stewart can't play 13, Roebuck can't play 13. So you're moving around. It's a bit like Asher, Coley. If Asher's best position is tight head, let's say, but can play loose head, but you've also got a very good tight head, do you move him? Do you move him because, well, he's best tight head, but he can play the other side, so therefore, what would you do? From a forwards point of view, how do you see it?
I think A goes back to the game plan, because if you're probably going to play like wide distributing rugby, I don't think Freeman will play 13 for, say, New Zealand, but I think he'd be on the wing, you know what I mean? But I think if it's England and they're going to be set piece focused, they need someone to defend that 13 channel that's got speed to cover ground, but actually the game plan is kick the ball and play almost like set piece attack in the opposition half. Get your strikes really nailed off scrums and line outs. That there's time in the week to be able to have a Freeman do that. It's not like he's learning it brand new. And I think, again, 15 would be interesting, because I think, again, if you have a George Ford there who probably plays in the backfield and kicks the ball in the air, then it's different to playing over, say, a Marcus at 10. But yeah, you see all ends of it, and I'd probably sat on the fence, but I think in some regards it's get your best players on the field. Some regards it's build a bit of depth in regards, can Freeman play at 13? Can he be good at 13? Because, you know what I mean? You need to know. So yeah, I think it's a bigger change as well. As a forward, I think you go around hitting things really. And yes, there's a bit of technical side, loose head, tight head, there's a bit of technical aspects, but basically a line out's a line out. Your role's the same. Whereas I think, probably you obviously know better than me, but backfield, defending at 13 is different. Defend on the wing. Actually, your roles in how much meters you coverage in regards to the backfield and the kicking game, that kind of stuff changes, and that's probably the bigger headache. But again, if there's time in the week depending on how England play, if they were playing free-flowing rugby and out the back, then yeah, it'd probably be difficult. But the way the England play and the structure they play probably is an easier slot in for Freeman at 13.
Yeah, I think we all know that Steve loves depth, and he loves, coaches, to be honest with you, just love having options to them, don't they? Players who can play everywhere. It makes the bench more fluid. It makes being able to go to 6-2 easier, all that type of stuff. But you know what? I think Coley has raised the best point about this whole debate, and I think that it does come back to playing style. Then it comes back to who is around him and the balance of the back line. Who'd have thought that Coley would have the best take on the on the role of the winger, eh?
Thank you.
Fair play. Well done.
Thank you. Let's leave that there then.
Yeah,
we'll move
it's
on.
what he does. It's what he does. Right, moving on. New Zealand, of course, against Scotland. That's a big game on Saturday. I'm going to put it out there, lads. If Scotland don't beat New Zealand this weekend, they never will beat New Zealand. It's been 100 years. And I'm telling you now, if they don't do it this weekend, mate, it'll be another 100 years.
Your predictions, Len, crap, mate. We're not going with that.
I just want to draw your attention to the 13th of February, where you're actually going to Edinburgh. So if anyone wants to meet Ben Youngs live in person and fly into him, 13th of February in Edinburgh, you have a great opportunity.
Mate, I'm many times I've eaten my words and been happy to do that. That's absolutely fine with me. But I genuinely think that if they don't beat them this weekend, I'm not sure when they ever do. We talked about it for ages, years, and we're still waiting. And I feel like they've played Ireland, they're coming over from Chicago, everything like that. Scotland basically had a glorified team run against the USA. Gregor Townsend invited Red Bull along, come and check it out, fellas. USA are a powerhouse sporting nation. Yeah, they're really good at rugby. Come and watch me, come watch me. Next minute, they've absolutely run riot. And glorified team run, everything's been set up nicely for them to play New Zealand. And I feel like if they don't do it this weekend, I'm not sure they do, lads. Ever.
Yeah, I mean, ever is just such an unnecessary large shout.
For a very long time, then. For a very long time.
They could beat them next year, then. They could beat them the year after. They could beat them at any point.
They may not play each other for years.
I really do appreciate the aggressiveness, mate, but my association with you is slowly dwindling at this stage.
I do think the odds are almost not stacked in Scotland's favour, but with New Zealand coming over from Chicago, you've got jet lag, you've got a couple of injuries like Scott Barrett, Jordy Barrett, I think both broken. Like, New Zealand is disrupted. If you're Scotland, you've had potentially 2-3 weeks now to plan for this. You know, I know you played USA last week, but you rest a lot of players and you got some game time into other players and that kind of stuff. But you're basically, not say laying a trap for New Zealand, but if you're Scotland, you're trying to lay a trap for New Zealand. So when they come over here, you get them. And I think that's, you know what I mean? That's the plan. And so I agree with Len in some regards. This is a great opportunity for Scotland to beat New Zealand. But I think we sort of underestimate the fact that New Zealand travel all around the globe. They go with the Rugby Championship from Argentina to back to New Zealand, South Africa, all that kind of stuff. And they'll be used to travel, and they're actually a really good team. And they've played a game at Test match level against Ireland, beat Irish, got going in the final 20 minutes of the game. So they could always replicate that. You know what I mean? Yes, they were slow starters, but I don't think they'll be slow starters twice in a week, but we'll find out.
Let's set the scene, right? So Scotland, settled team. Gregor Townsend been there for a very long time. BT Murrayfield sold out. New Zealand coming to town. Huge game. Loads of hype around it. They've had their captain's glorified run against USA. All the patterns are looking great. Everyone's in high spirits. The Barrett brothers are out injured for New Zealand. They've come over from Chicago. Everything's set. Everything's geared up. Scotland had 11 players go on the Lions tour, so they've got all that experience ready to come in. But I still don't see it happening. I still think New Zealand will win.
Do you know what? I'm going to put some money on Scotland.
Go on, Lara, go on then.
I do fancy Scotland. I think that whilst New Zealand do travel a lot, that you've got to remember that this is the end of the campaign for them, and they've added an 8-hour flight from Chicago in. They've played Ireland, they've got Scotland and England. I don't think that they're going to be at their best. And I think that Gregor Townsend and Scotland, with the players that they've got available to them, with the personnel, with Finn Russell, with Doohan, with all those guys back off a Lions tour full of confidence, I reckon that they'll model a game plan on the Argentina game from the Rugby Championship, that kind of high tempo, keep the ball moving, high phase count, and try and wear them down that way. And I think if they do that, I think they've got the players and the personnel to be able to execute that game plan. And they've got a good chance. And they'll be well aware in that camp about how long it's been since they've beaten New Zealand. And these records at some point have got to get broken. And they can't go on forever, Len.
And I can see Scotland, let's say, trying to run New Zealand around, but I just think New Zealand potentially almost win a set-piece battle with their ginormous Tomato Williams. I mentioned him again. The other guys they can roll off the bench and they can bring a power game. And I think especially later in that game, New Zealand can roll out a power game, which actually might swing it back in their favour. So again, it's going to be a really interesting game, especially all the talk out of, one thing I will say is the talk that surrounds this game. It's going to be really interesting to see whether New Zealand just sort of they always have a habit of lying low and then, all the talks on Scotland going to beat them, Scotland going to beat them. And then New Zealand not pulling out the bag, but New Zealand sort of internalise that motivation. And next thing, they've scored 50 points. So it'll be interesting to see.
Do not be surprised by, when you're all going to bed on Saturday night and you just think about it and go, why did we ever doubt New Zealand wouldn't do the business? That's what I'm thinking, because they just do it. That's what they do. And I think Scotland will play, as you mentioned, Tone, great point that, mate. Argentina almost did a blueprint the way they beat them in the Rugby Championship. Scotland play a very similar way. That is their tact. I'm just not sure they have the power back end of the game as Ireland. Ireland almost faded away the back 20 against New Zealand. I see Scotland doing something very similar. Wouldn't surprise if it's tight for 60, 65, but I just think New Zealand eventually will get the job done, mate. And don't underestimate New Zealand IQ. They're just so smart, aren't they, the way they do it? And if you want to go high tempo against it, well, we've all been there, lads. You think you know what high tempo game is, and then you play against New Zealand, and you are literally breathing in the big ones because they play at such pace themselves. So it's very well thinking it, but actually they are, it's also easy to forget that they're happy living in that space of pure, chaos, fatigue, high tempo.
Then I've got a proposal for you, mate. Let's chuck 20 quid on it. Me versus you. I'm putting 20 quid on Scotland. You can put your 20 quid on New Zealand.
I think you should put the winner should put money towards the 745 game.
No problem.
That's even better idea, Coley. That is even better idea.
Good.
On that note, I better start stretching it and warmed up. But we'll be back on Sunday. Make sure you grab your tickets for the 745 game if you want to have a laugh and see me get smashed by some rugby leagueies.
And you can get a ticket to our 2026 tour. The links are in the episode description, and you need the code THB.
And thanks so much for joining us, mate. Getting you back. How good?
Love it, bro. Thanks for having me.
Really convincing, that tone.
Was it not? Sorry.
For the love of rugby.